Plateaus are a thing of the past. Plateaus were written about in the 1980s for guys who really just didn't know how to manipulate nutrition or the chemistry of training. So,
What's up? 筋肉翻訳です。さあ今日は絶対できる脂肪減少とカロリー増加のためのカロリー調整と有酸素の極意見ていきましょう。減量や筋肥大うまくいっていますか？筋トレがうまくできているのに成長しない、なかなか脂肪が落ちないというのは栄養が原因かもしれません。基礎代謝が何キロカロリーだからマイナスカロリーはどのぐらいにしてなどと少し調べると出てきますよね。今回はそれよりも深く、そして分かりやすくベンさんが教えてくれています。途中で出てくるカロリー赤字、余剰カロリーというのは基礎代謝をベースに言われています。なのであくまで基礎代謝ベースということを頭に入れておいてください。和訳だけでは少し難しいなと感じる人のために後半で解説をしています。最後まで見ていってください。どうぞ。
Hey ladies and gents, Ben Pekulski here to talk about cyclical nutrition and really how to cycle your calories to optimize muscle gain without fat gain, and also conversely how to lose fat as fast as possible without hitting a plateau. So when you're eating, your body adapts really quickly. So if I eat the same amount of calories every day, my body adapts. If I'm in a caloric deficit every day, my body adapts. So if I'm in a caloric deficit, my body's shutting down my thyroid because my body's trying to go into preservation mode. If I'm in a caloric excess, my body's actually going to have an upregulation of its metabolism, its thyroid function really quickly, usually in somewhere between 3 to 5 days. So the best approach to take nutritionally is to make sure you're always changing things up so you're taking advantage of those adaptation phases. So specific to muscle building, if I'm trying to gain muscle, I need to be in a caloric excess. Everybody's going to admit that. There's no denying I need to be in a caloric excess if I want to gain muscle. The problem is if I'm not training all the time and directing all those nutrients into my muscles, called nutrient partitioning, if I'm not partitioning those nutrients into my muscles often, a lot of those nutrients can be stored as fat. So what do I got to do? I got to make sure that I'm cycling my body in a high caloric state and then bringing it back down into maybe a caloric deficit. And cycling through those things in a strategic way that allows you to spend more time in a caloric excess, a little bit of time or just enough time in a caloric deficit to allow your body to not accumulate fat. And the next benefit of being in a caloric deficit is you're going to actually get an upregulation of your body's ability to use those nutrients. What does that mean? So if I'm in a caloric excess all the time, my body loses its ability to use insulin, so it becomes a little bit insulin resistant. My body becomes a little bit hormone resistant sometimes. Leptin and ghrelin balance changes a little bit. So by going back into a caloric deficit, your body becomes more efficient at using the food you do eat, and you get an upregulation of utilization of these nutrients. So learning how to do all that stuff is extremely important to your long-term success. So many people get stuck in the routine of I'm growing. I'm going to do this traditional bulking style where I'm just trying to gain as much weight as possible in the shortest amount of time possible. But the problem is I gain fat. So what's the problem with gaining fat? It's very estrogenic. So your body's going to convert all your natural testosterone into estrogen. Any fat is also highly correlated with inflammation, which is correlated with high cortisol, which is what? We know cortisol is going to be very bad to the muscle building process. So I highly suggest everyone literally everybody, take a cyclical approach to nutrition. So whether you're trying to gain muscle or trying to lose fat, the only thing that's changing is the amount of time you spend in each phase. So if I'm trying to lose fat, conversely, I obviously need to spend a greater amount of time in a caloric deficit. Well, how long? If I'm on a caloric deficit for longer than 3 to 5 days, guess what? Thyroid function shuts down, especially if you're doing low intensity cardio. So amplify that even more if you're doing low intensity cardio. So 3 to 5 days, I got to figure out some way to either manipulate my training or manipulate my nutrition to get that upregulation of my thyroid function. So I'm constantly allowing my body to adapt and use fat for fuel rather than stagnate my metabolism, or obviously in the reverse, in the case of muscle gain, my body's going to start storing fat. So if you guys want to take maximum advantage of these things, I know it's a lot to talk about in a video, so I'm not even going to bother diving deep on this. What I've done is I've put it all into basically a done-for-you program that allows you to know exactly when to switch phases, whatever phase you happen to be in. So if exclusive muscle gain is your goal, I've designed it perfectly so that you can check in as often as you want or as seldom as you want. Say, be like, hey man, I'm not gaining as much muscle as I want. Well, we'll tell you what you maybe need to push your calories up a little bit. We'll give you some troubleshooting, very specific to what you're seeing right now. If you're noticing, oh man, I'm getting a little bit too much fat, well, we've actually got some really specific calculations and algorithms that allow us to assess, okay, we're going to drop your calories a little bit, or we're going to change your phase of training, or whatever it happens to be. We're going to make some recommendations that are very specific to the results you're seeing right now on an ongoing week-to-week basis. If fat loss is your goal, same idea. We're going to tell you, hey, you need to do a bit of a reset here, give yourself a bit of a calorie bump, or hey, you're doing okay, you're seeing regular progress, stay doing exactly what you're doing until there's a plateau. You should never see plateaus in your life. There's no reason to see a plateau. If you know how to manipulate the minute variables, whether it be caloric manipulation or exercise stimulus manipulation, biochemistry, all these little manipulations should prevent plateaus. Plateaus are a thing of the past. Plateaus were written about in the 1980s for guys who really just didn't know how to manipulate nutrition or the chemistry of training. So we're going to teach you guys all that stuff in the honestly best put together cyclical nutrition program ever. It's called the Incredible Bulk, and maybe it's not correctly named. It is made for people looking to gain as much muscle as possible. I just thought it was a cool name. But it's also made for people who want to lose fat as fast as possible. It's a really, really great program. I highly suggest you check it out.
さあ、いかがでしたでしょうか。3から5日でカロリーに体は慣れてしまう。カロリー赤字が3から5日続くと甲状腺機能が低下する。その状態で低負荷の有酸素をすると余計に悪化する。高負荷の運動だと甲状腺機能は高まる。甲状腺機能が下がる前にカロリーを増やして代謝が高い状態を保つ。まとめるとこういった内容でした。ここから考えると常にカロリー赤字状態で高負荷の運動をするというパワープレイもできそうです。ただそれでは体や精神面でのストレスが強くコルチゾールが出てしまう危険性があります。なのである程度の期間を取ることでカロリーや運動強度を上下させてコントロールするとストレスなくスムーズに落ちやすくなってくるはずです。カロリーサイクルをして楽しくカロリーコントロールをしましょう。みんなは減量にどれぐらいの期間をかけていますか？コメント欄で教えてください。僕は最低でも3ヶ月取るようにしています。最後まで見ていただいてありがとうございます。セカンドチャンネルのオカザーマンチャンネルでは実際僕が海外から情報をお届けしています。概要欄のリンクから見てみてください。ではまた。
I won't look back when you're around. I won't think twice when you're gone. Don't hesitate to call me back. 'Cause I won't